Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Mange, and this is Kev's TV series. So apparently something happened. And if you want to know what happened, I did complete my Alola story, to be honest. But apparently I lost my other papers. I had them, but I don't know where they are. So, I guess I'm gonna have to interpret this the best I can of when I finished what I got for the beginning. It's the best I can do. I'm sorry, but this did take a long time. I worked hard on it. So, I'm gonna see what I can do, but when I'm done with this, apparently I'm gonna put in some addeds for how I try to understand my journey in Alola. Because to be honest, I did try my best to interpret Alola the best I can, and that's why I made this a story. So let's get started with the first part. Of my story. So at the start of my journey, this is the beginning of how I came from Kalos, because that's where I last left off from this. Now it's ready. So here I go. Alola's story. Kevin has finally conquered his fear, and after getting off the makeup, Kevin went back to pack all the girl wear. Embarrassing. Then Domino showed up to finish all the packing and held onto the master's performance reward until it would be sent to Team Rocket headquarters. Domino said now, what after being Kalos' queen, I replied, let's head to the airport and you can take these Pokeballs to Team Rocket. So Domino did that from a Pokemon Center, and we headed to the airport. At the airport, Kevin was looking for a flight to Alola, looking for a flight to Domino asked, what are you looking for a flight to? I said, Alola. Domino said, Alola? Okay. I responded, then let's head there. So me and Domino went to where our flight is and we waited. When the plane arrived, Kevin and Domino boarded. Then other people boarded, and and the plane was full. After the plane was full, it took off to Alola. Next time, a new beginning. So that's the end of Kalos. And now, I've entered Alola. But if you're wondering who Domino is, what am I talking about? What is Domino? Well, Domino is a member of Team Rocket. And if you want to know how I came across Domino, well, think about when I explained about my Kanto journey. Remember when I talked about how I was trying to find the Team Rocket headquarters in the start of my Kanto journey? Yes, I did. And apparently, it wasn't Jesse or James that came over. Giovanni paired me with Domino. And Domino is a person, not a domino, but it's a name of a person. Whoever knew Domino could be a name for a person? But this Domino is a girl, and this girl helps me to put me into Kalos girly makeup, and that's why I mentioned that. All right, now since you understand who Domino is, it's time to continue with my story that had a connection with Kalos going to Alola. The plane made it to Alola. It landed on Mele Mele Island, and me and Domino left the plane, then got accustomed. Kevin and Domino experienced things in Mele Mele until night fell. Kevin knew there was an evil team in Alola as well, so Kevin decided to leave Domino and start focusing on himself and find the starter Pokemon at the Pokemon school during nighttime. So Kevin snuck around to find the 3 Pokeballs and took them without anyone not knowing, as if anybody would care or not. So Kevin snuck into the Pokemon school, searched everywhere, and found them. Then took them after taking those Pokeballs. Kevin went somewhere else to spend the night, so Kevin went in the forest and find where Jesse and James were when they were in Alola. So Kevin slept there for the night. And apparently that's where I'm going to leave it off. Apparently. Because, well, this is just the start of my journey To let you know of how this began off, I grabbed the 3 Pokeballs, like I said, and those 3 Pokeballs were the 3 starter Pokemon that you would get in Alola. Litten, Rowlet, Poplio. And they would evolve. Yes. They did on when I mentioned my Alola story that they did evolve, and of when they would have evolved to when they would evolve to, i.e., Torracat, Bjorn, Dartrix, and then their final evolutions. Incineroar, Decidueye, and Primarina. But I'm looking way ahead of that right now because that's later on in the story when that happened. I did manage to save the other papers, but I didn't bring them just because they're not the main parts of what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is, well, how I could interpret Alola to myself. So, yes, I landed on Mele Mele Island. So this is how I'm going to interpret this, but by the anime. By the game, it's different. But kicking off of where I last left off from this story, of where I mentioned where Jesse and James were when they were in Alola. So Kevin stepped there for the night. Turns out there was 4 Pokemon there already, but I had to hide, making sure that they don't find me. Otherwise, I'm going to be treated by Beware's honey. So first, I tried my best to sneak in to the place where Jesse and James would finally make their headquarters. I head up in there, sneakily as possible without making a sound. I slept in their headquarters that was made. And then when morning arrived, I did some Pokeball snatching. Because I captured Marini, Mimikyu, Beware, and Stuffle. But apparently one had to go. And as my journey progresses, there were only 3 Pokemon that had to go in the process. And at the start, it became Beware, Stuffle, and then Primarina. And when Primarina would come to be, yeah, that was a little early in the time, but that was later on, besides what I would catch. So, since I caught those 3, I caught another set of 3, and then one more that went to Team Rocket headquarters. so that Team Rocket wouldn't worry about actually having Beware when they have seen that there was a Beware, when Team Rocket saw that there was a Beware there, so yes. Other Pokemon I captured, in the process that made my big team of 6, that was Cosmog, Hakamo'o. Well, yeah, Hakamo'o. And at some point, those two would evolve to Cosmorim, then whatever Pokemon that you caught in Cosmog that would evolve to either Solgaleo and Lunala, and this Cosmog was different, so Cosmog, of how different it is, evolved straight into the Dawn Wings Lunala. Because, believe it or not, in my story, I mentioned that Cosmoem learned Photon Geyser in a battle. And when Cosmoem learned Photon Geyser, you know something was a little bit different with my Cosmog, aka Cosmoem, when it would be important into a battle. And then during the time of when I would get to the altar of the sun, you would think that my Cosmoem would have became Desk Main Solgaleo, but not really. So my team consists of these Pokemon. It's Decidueye, Incineroar, Mareanie, Mimikyu, and my last two added that I had journeyed with, and when I would capture them. So, that wraps up that part of my Pokemon, but what's the point about my little story of what I'm trying to get at here? Well, the truth is, to my Alola story, I was trying to face off the captains, and I wanted to tell you the story of how I would face off these captains and I would get their Z crystals. It's not like I would be taking them just because I took them. No, that would make me a crook. That would make me a stealer. And would I ever be like that to people that, well, had so much when they had their Z crystals? Yes. So, my Pokemon battles would consist of the captains in Alola. As I progress in my story. So what's different here is, in the anime, there was Kiawe, Sophocles, Mallow, and Lana. Lily, on the other hand, is not a captain, but watched. And there's Alima. To the game, there was only one captain to face off, and that was only Alima. So, first off, I started off with Alima, and then I head to the Pokemon school where I would face off the four: Mallow, Sophocles, Kiawe, and Lana. Alright, so that's 5 down. But apparently I have 3 more left. Because of Mo, Acerola, actually that was 2, I think. And it did say 3. But I know that there is a trial to take on, and that's basically part of the game as well of, even though that there's no captain there, yes. So, after I faced off the 5, I had 2 more. Mo and Acerola, like I said before. And then after that, I would then head to where my Cosmoem would be the Dawn Wings Lunala. Because believe it or not, in my journey, I got this Cosmog from a different set of ruins. And at the altar of the sun, the opposite would be somewhere else. So I was at the altar of the moon at the time. And since I was at altar of the moon is why my Cosmog would become the Dawn Wings Lunala. So that basically wraps up everything of Alola, as I mentioned, but I know a friend that's a story writer. I know he were to help me. And after what I lost, I hope my friend could, Help me with my gaps. Because, well, this is just the beginning. And where's my middle? I have no idea. But, oh well. Guess I'm gonna have to leave that too with my story writer friend. His name is Peter Early. I made friends with him at Plus Company. And he's going to help me with my story. Well, to finish it at least, but I'm gonna have to tell him. I'll tell you what's up. Because if I don't find out what happened to my middle, I'm gonna have to hold on to those battles because those were important and of why I need them, and when I have them, I would like this to be edited a little bit so that the rest of my Alola story can be together. So this is just the beginning, but until when me and Peter fix up my middle somehow, then I can finally let you know the important things of what else I put into my Alola story. It was a lot of work, and what the heck? So I'm just giving you this breakdown of my story. That's all this is, because I'm only having my beginning. So, there, but for your information of the sequences I would have, it would be the EVM, Z, the Waterium Z, the Fireium Z, the Grassium Z, the Bugium Z, the Steelium Z, and the Ghostium Z. These crystals would help me to get into the Pokemon League. And since I mentioned my trial, I also got the Dragonium Z. I would never challenge the Kahunas. Ash did to get himself to the league, but no, not really. I interpreted my journey as it is, and I would show my qualification for the league. for 8 Z crystals. And out of those 8 Z crystals is how I would use them well. So as soon as I finally get my other papers back somehow, or I could just leave it to my friend Peter Early, the story writer person, to help me a little bit, I'd have to tell him what's up. So, this is just the rough draft part of my Alola story. And then when I come back, I'm going to pick up where I left off here. Mentioning about how it took the 3 Pokeballs that are the 3 starters, and where I would spend the night in the forest, where Jesse and James were. I'm gonna go back to that, and then just a catch up of why I'm mentioning that from the beginning. So I'll be like, last time in Kevin's Alola story, Kevin had a problem. But it's not like a problem in the story. It's a problem by where the Kevin's Alola stories papers go. So, after I mention this at the very last left off, I will then have my papers of how I interpreted this. It may take a long time, but I'm going to leave it off from here. But that doesn't mean I got other journeys to talk about. So I may have mentioned my Alola story. But I'm going to take a break from where I was at from before of my what if with what if Ash traveled without Pikachu to continue with the process of what my journey would be like in Alola, and I'll make sure to have my other papers by then. Before I get to my other things to talk about. So, since we understand this, I'm going to have to move on from here and move on from Alola until the last part is complete. Because of how you want to interpret this, of how my Pokemon battles went, I'll explain them the best I do, and how I would help my friend Peter to how I interpreted my Alola story in my Pokemon battles. Yep. So that's to come. Other things to come would be Galar, then Paldea, and it's going to be the same thing again because of, well, this will just be all wrapped up by then when I'm done with Galar and Paldea 4 times. The next few times is about my journey for Galar and my journey for Paldea. And then bam. That part is done. And hopefully by then, I can get to the next part of Galar and Paldea, of how I can interpret what his journey would be like in Galar. Well, since because of journeys that didn't make that happen, of course he went to Galar, but journeys, why did he have to do this? I just wanted a simple Ash Ketchum going to Galar and have a journey there. It is so much not to have Ash a journey in Galar. That's just wrong. Wrong on so many levels. You shouldn't have ended. No. I want Ash to travel in Galar, and that's it. But much of that anger later on, because that's going to interpret the next part of where I'm getting at. So, later.